Yo, welcome to Philosopher's Stone. Tonight's episode is another beginning of a series, and the series is cryptids, or cryptozoology, or cryptozoology, whatever you want to call it, because technically it's not a real ology, but that's for the mainstream scientists. That's what they say. I say it's real, because that's what I said. Word is law. I've been into cryptids my entire life because supposedly in 1930-something, my great-grandfather shot a Bigfoot at the foot of the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas. But one day I will tell that story in full, not tonight. Tonight we are getting started with a cryptid that you might have heard of if you've read or watched the movie The Mothman Prophecies. I'm talking about the Smiling Man, Indrid Cold, or the Grinning Man, or I guess he's got a couple other names, but Indrid Cold is a creepy fucking cryptid, and not really for the same reasons as the Mothman is, or Bigfoot, or what's another one, like the fucking goat of the Denton Bridge or whatever. He's not in the violent category of cryptids. So let's just get right into this story. It's fun as hell. So, man, I wish I could go to school for like cryptozoology, but that's not really a thing. Now, this tale is of a humanoid type man named Indrid Cold. This actually ties in regionally to the Mothman story because it all takes place in West Virginia, which is a very paranormal area per se. I'm going to get into the Mothman shit one day, but not right now. I want to focus on our boy, Mr. Cold. Cold was first sighted in October 1966 by two boys when they saw this tall, strange man standing near a fence, and he was wearing some type of metallic green armor suit and had a distinct, terrifying grin on his face. He was also supposedly missing his nose and ears, like some type of giant gray that didn't have the same features that we have. This strange grinning man figure chased the kids until they got away from him. Now, the second sighting is where the big story comes from. It's the most popular Indrid Cold account, if you will. And it's from Woodrow Derenberger, aka Woody, is what we're going to call him in this one. It was November 2nd, 1966, a little after 6 p.m. in Parkersburg, West Virginia. It was lightly raining, and Woody was driving on Interstate 77 back home to Mineral Wells, West Virginia. And that's when he heard a loud noise. He checked his mirrors and saw what he thought to be some type of tractor-trailer truck with no visible lights, but then the vehicle took flight and rolled over Woody's truck, landing in front of him. The UFO was a dark gray, charcoalish color and appeared to resemble the shape of an old kerosene lamp. I'll show a picture of what that looks like there. The craft was hovering about a foot off the road, and then the hatch opens up and out walks a 6-foot-tall man with a beaming smile. Olive complexion, roughly in his mid-30s, and he was wearing a metallic, shiny, dark blue jacket. The spacecraft slowly lifted to about 50 feet in the air after he exited, and the humanoid began speaking to Woodrow telepathically. He wanted him to roll his window down. He was staring right at him, and this is what Mr. Cold said. "Do not be afraid. I come from a country less powerful than yours. My name is Cold. I sleep, breathe, and bleed even the same as you do." So the conversation starter was pretty bland, and it didn't get really exciting at all. Cold asked about the city lights and what kind of place it was, pointing at Parkersburg. Woody then explained what a city was, and Cold replied that those type of places were called gatherings, where he's from. Cold asked Woodrow if he worked, and he answered, "Yes, I am a salesman." "Do you work?" And Mr. Cold replied, "Yes, I am a searcher." A searcher. Cold then encouraged Woody to report the encounter and, tell authorities, and then he would come forward at a later date to the public to confirm that Woody wasn't lying about this encounter with an alien. The spacecraft descends down, hatch opens up, and off goes Mr. Cold back into the sky. So let's keep in mind that this whole conversation is happening telepathically. So cars are driving by, and these two dudes are just staring at each other while a lantern-shaped UFO is hovering 50 to 60, 75 feet above them. So that's kind of bizarre in itself. So Woodrow gets home and is shaken the fuck up. He's tripping out because a smiling alien just had a conversation with him on the side of the highway through his fucking brain. He tells his wife, she urges him to call the police, and he does. Surprisingly, the cops are like, "Okay, dude, do you need a doctor?" The following day is when the media shitstorm for old Woody begins. He was questioned for long periods of time by the city police and the state police about his story and if it matched up each time. His story appeared on local news, and surprisingly, a few witnesses who were traveling on the highway came forward saying they saw Woody and the unknown man standing on the side of 77. One guy said he was blinded by a beam of light that came down from Cold spacecraft, like a binding light that just kind of froze him, I guess. Maybe a deer in headlights effect. Not really sure. Woody even reported that he was visited by the fucking men in black who would just interrogate him about UFO knowledge and bounce. I'm not sure if that happened right afterwards, but that's a reoccurring theme in any type of case where you report a UFO sighting or a contact sighting or any type of experience. These guys, I'm sure you've seen the fucking movies, Men in Black, they come and question you. Now here's where we tie in the Mothman stuff. There was a Mothman sighting the day before Cold and Woody met by a National Guardsman who was working near Mount Pleasant. He saw a human-type man figure perched in a tree. When he really focused on what he was looking at, he realized it was more of a bird-type creature rather than a man. He went and got his homeboys to come check it out, but the creature was gone when they got there. Like I said, I'm going to go over the Mothman story pretty soon in this cryptid series, so let's just get one thing clear. There is a shitload of paranormal activity in West Virginia. If you're familiar with the Hellier series on Amazon, if not, I recommend you check it out. It's very fun programming. So now let's go over the return of Mr. Cold, because he told Woody he was going to return, and this is where he completes that promise. On November 4th, 1966, Woodrow is traveling with a coworker doing his salesman thing when he felt a tingling sensation in his forehead, specifically around the temples. And this is when Mr. Cold starts telepathically communicating with Woody for the second time. This time he informed Woody that he was from the planet Lanulos in the galaxy of Ganymede, and that Lanulos was very similar to Earth with the change of seasons and whatnot. Mr. Cold said that he was married to a woman named Kimmy and had 2 sons, and that the Lanulosans had a lifespan of 125 to 175 years. He also explained that naturally his planet had no war, no hunger, no poverty, or what we know as human misery. This transmission was different because Cold was nowhere to be seen, so he directly entered Woodrow's mind and fed him this information without being around at all. Towards the end, Cold told him that the withdrawal of the communication would be painful and to embrace himself. Woody felt a vicious, sharp pain in his temple area and then damn near passed out. So that encounter is very odd to the story because was Cold in the sky directly above him? That's how he was able to precisely telepathically communicate, or did he have some type of connection that he built on the first encounter? So time marched on, and Woodrow tried to get back to normal life, but that was not possible. There was hunters that would wait around his property, literally waiting for Cold to return in his spaceship so they could capture or even kill them a spaceman. The UFO community urged Woody not to talk about his experiences with Cold to anyone. Keep it in the subculture, dog. Don't fucking go off and tell the media again. Don't do interviews, shit like that. One night during these stakeouts, a Volkswagen pulled up to Woodrow's house. A tall man in a suit stepped out, and him and Woody spoke on the porch. This was Cold, for sure. This was him. And he was there to give Woody a medication for his stomach ailment that he'd been suffering from for a while. Could have been stress from the encounter in the media, could have been Crohn's disease. This is also the first time Cold reveals his full name, Indrid Cold. So back on the Mothman stuff, John Keel, the paranormal investigator slash author, was in the area of West Virginia during this time, following all the Mothman sightings and reportings. He was on the case of the Mothman. He claims to receive a prophesizing phone call from a man who claimed to be Indrid Cold. He told Keel not to return to Point Pleasant because something bad was going to happen to him. Not sure if it was this, if this was in a threatening call, like a threatening manner, or like a warning call, like, hey dude, don't go back, something bad's gonna happen to you, or if it was like, don't fucking go back to Point Pleasant, or me and my alien Lanulosans are gonna fuck you up. Now, Woodrow later wrote a book called Visitors from Lanulos, where he goes into greater detail of his continuous relationship with Indrid Cold. Woody apparently took several trips to the galaxy of Ganymede, which just so happens to be the name of one of Jupiter's moons, but who knows? I doubt that they were going to Jupiter's moons. He was brought to the planet of Lanulos, and by his account, he spent about 6 months there, but that's their time, and our time is different, which would explain how he described their verbal language to sound like it was sped up, like an auctioneer that you literally couldn't understand. Or something about how they would adjust and speak in a slow, monotone cadence after a while of being around him, like their vocal language would adapt to the speed of ours. Woodrow would later explain that Lanulos was 14.6 light years away, and the humanoid beings that inhabited it were actually early Earthlings who had spacefaring technology at some point that had been long forgotten or possibly scrubbed from history by people who win the wars. Eventually, their contact ended. I'm not really sure why, or maybe Woody said, fuck you, Indrid, I'm done with this shit. You've made my life a fucking nightmare. If you want to know more about this subject, read the book The Visitors from Lanulos, and also check out John Keel's Mothman Prophecies. Both are really good reads, and I've just kind of paraphrased the whole story of Indrid Cold for this episode. There we have it. Indrid Cold. Are the aliens of Lanulos actually some of the Atlanteans or Lemurians or other civilizations that were breakaway civilizations that escaped before the past cataclysms or tragedies of Earth or global resets happened? Or are they the star children we hear about in these new UFO stories where these black-eyed people come and fuck with regular ass civilians? A lot of the Indrid Cold stuff points to maybe Men in Black. Maybe he was one of the Men in Black. If you've ever looked into the stories of the MIB, they seem a little extraterrestrial to me. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't match up as humans, saying old slang, dressing 50 years behind, that type of shit. Also, I need to note that the Native Americans in the area of West Virginia forbid or condemn certain areas of West Virginia. Like, there's a reason why we don't go over there, we don't farm there, we don't hunt there. There's nothing over there for us but bad juju. And I'm not sure exactly those stories. Maybe I could do a whole episode on that. There's definitely a bunch of avenues I can take from this, but we're just going to leave it at that for Indrid Cold. I hope this was a cryptid you haven't heard of before, because when I started looking into the Smiling Man, I was intrigued as fuck. It's just a fun little cryptozoology story, and this Woody guy seems like a stand-up dude. It's not like he had really much to gain from saying he met with Indrid Cold or this humanoid type figure on the highway. It just doesn't make any sense for him to be a liar about it. It's not like he's at UFO conferences today. Supposedly, at some point, Woody moved away and just tried to forget about this whole thing, but he never recanted. He just stopped talking about it. So that's something to remember from this. He just shut the fuck up about it at a certain point. Like, you know what? I'm done trying to tell my story. If Indrid Cold comes back around, I probably won't let you know. So him and Indrid could have a relationship well into his death in the 90s. So, that was it. Thank you for watching Philosopher's Stoned. Can't wait to get into more cryptid shit. It's gonna happen. Just wait. Just you wait. Thank you.